Good morning, everybody. My name is Nick Harrison here with the Nick Harrison Podcast. If you are a returning listener of the Nick Harrison Podcast, I want to thank you for your loyalty and your faithfulness to the Nick Harrison Podcast. I took a little bit of a break, but I hope to be back now cranking out consistent and solid episodes once every week, every Wednesday morning at 7:30 a.m. Eastern Time. If you are not a returning listener, if you're a brand new listener, I hope you enjoy listening. I hope you have some fun. Basically, I'm going to do this once a week, every Wednesday morning. I'm going to talk about the news, the celebrity news, Hollywood news, entertainment news, news media, stuff like that from that prior week. I'll put my spin on it, talk about it, move on, be done with it. So without further ado, good morning, everybody. Welcome aboard, and let's get started.
Pop culture, entertainment, celebrity news, and more. Broadcasting hot and heavy from the great state of North Carolina. And adding a biased opinion, of course, you can find it all here and now. Because it's time for the Nick Harrison Podcast.
That's right, everybody. It is indeed time for the Nick Harrison Podcast. Real quick, let me hit you up with my social media stuff. The Nick Harrison Podcast now is a subsidiary of RealCelebrityNews.com. That's www.realcelebritynews.com. Updated by the minute with the latest trending stories straight out of Hollywood, news media, entertainment news, current events, that sort of thing. It is more than just celebrity news. It's health news, social media news, politics, technology, all that great stuff. The podcast here, I'm probably primarily going to talk about celebrity news because that's what interests me specifically. But on realcelebritynews.com, you can get way more news stories and that sort of stuff. So first on this podcast, we're going to talk about celebrity news.
Lights, cameras, action.
Hey, welcome to Hollywood.
What's new in celebrity news?
So speaking of news in celebrity news, Dolly Parton, we all know who she is, right? She is the center of a touching Twitter thread that went viral last week. And while the story may have seemed too good to be true, the legendary singer confirmed that it really did happen. Last Wednesday, Twitter user Chachi Chatters, who just happens to be a fabulous storyteller, tweeted a tale from a few years ago when she decided to drive to New Haven, Connecticut, and take out her best friend's daughter as a celebration for graduating from Yale. When she arrived in New Haven, the graduate produced concert tickets to see an unnamed artist. After a wonderful time at the show, she wrote that she was, quote, physically exhausted, but still high on all the adrenaline of the night. She was also starving, so she decided to stop at a pizza joint just outside of New Haven to get a bite to eat. Even at 2 a.m., the place was packed and she couldn't get a table, so she sat at the bar and placed her order. And then someone very familiar sat down next to her, and then Chachi Chatters on Twitter tweeted, I looked at her again, I looked at her for a minute before I remembered I wasn't breathing. And that's where the story really gets cooking. Love bud, you okay? She said with her mischievous smile. The waiter came over to this unnamed celebrity and told her that her table was ready. The storyteller thought her brush with fame had passed. And then she tweeted, but instead she turned to me and asked if I'd like to join her. I almost did a royal curtsy, but managed to maintain my composure. Of course, and thank you, she tweeted. The two had a delightful dinner together. She says they talked about kids, growing up, health issues, husbands, politics, weather, pedicures. They even sampled each other's pizza. And at the final moment, the celebrity did something very sweet. She says, in the end, we paid our own bills and we're going to go our separate ways. She asked in her entourage for a pen. She took my ticket to her concert from my hand, Chachi Chatters tweeted. She wrote, love Dolly Parton. And then she told her, now you drive safe, baby, and good night. And then Chachi Chatter said, I will, and you too, Dolly. The author of the thread here, who didn't respond to the request for the comment, remains starstruck to this day. Chachi Chatters tweeted, some days I wake up and still think it was just a dream. And then I walk to the wall and look at the framed ticket, and I still get goosebumps. And I smile, and I hum a little, and I do a little twirl. She called me Love Bud, I tell myself, and my day is made. Oh, Dolly Parton, we sure do love you. Anyways, in other news, do we know who Justine Bateman is? Justine Bateman only had 2 small acting gigs prior to being cast on Family Ties at the age of 16. Quote, the rule was the kids in this agency had to do 15 commercials or something before they sent them out on a theatrical audition for a television show, and I had only done 2 commercials, she says. But Bateman's agent defied the, quote, rules as sent her out on audition for a part on Family Ties. Within 4 months, I had 2 commercials and the pilot of Family Ties, and that was it, said Bateman, who was cast as Mallory Keaton on the show alongside Michael J. Fox, Tina Yothers, Michael Gross, and Meredith Baxter. The series, which debuted in 1982 and ran through 1989, became so successful with viewers and critics alike that it catapulted Bateman and her castmates to fame. Millions of viewers tuned in to NBC every week to watch the Keatons navigate politics and family dynamics in the 1980s. Pretty soon, Bateman could hardly go anywhere without being mobbed by fans. Though she appreciated all the success, Bateman admits that it became overwhelming at times. Looking back, she says that her co-star Michael J. Fox had an even more intense experience with fame. It was great to have Michael there at the time. His fame was always bigger than mine, so it was nice to have a sort of mentor, whether he knew it or not, like a fame mentor for me. And no matter how bad it got for me, whether you're mobbed in a mall or something, I'd always tell myself, Mike's got it worse. Bateman's star would never shine as brightly as it did during her time on that show. Now, nearly 30 years after Family Ties went off the air, Bateman is examining the ins and outs of stardom in her new book, Fame, The Hijacking of Reality. In the book, she looks at the internal reality shift of the famous and explores theories on the public's behavior at each stage of a celebrity's career. She also gets candid about her own ups and downs with stardom. It's a really trippy experience. This happens for such a small subset of people, but it's relatable in this sense, she said. For all of us, we have a certain reality, whether where we live, what language we speak, what job we have, who our parents are, sisters, brothers, whatever. And if those items were to be removed, it's hugely traumatic because it's become a part of our reality. And for a tiny subset of people, fame comes in and inundates everything. Bateman had acted in the years since Family Ties, making appearances on Californication, Desperate Housewives, and Arrested Development. But her fame never reached Family Ties levels again. When fame starts leaving, it tethers into lots of things, especially how you feel about yourself or how you feel about where you fit in society. And that's what I call, quote, post-fame. When the fame goes away, which isn't really talked about that much. She doesn't much miss about the fame part of her time on Family Ties. And in case you're wondering, Bateman would like to leave the show right where it ended. Quote, my personal feeling about reboots is I'm very against it, she said. I feel bad for the pop culture of this generation because I feel like they're getting a lot of retread, a lot of digested and vomited stuff from our teens and 20s and all of that. And I think that's a shame. There's a lot of new stuff too, of course, but I think the reboots and sequels has just gone really overboard now. They're not even reimaginings. It makes sense to me that there would be a lot of comfort food programming right now because things feel so in flux and people want that sort of comfort. But I don't think it's the right way to go, she said. Despite the new spate of rivals, Bateman says she's 100% against a Family Ties reboot, but she's not against the general concept of Family Ties making a return. If somebody did a new show that within a family had conflicting political views, that would be great, Bateman said. Family Ties to me was strictly 80s. It was from the beginning of the 80s until the end of the 80s, and it was very specific to that time. Ronald Reagan was president. It was different. Bateman, meanwhile, has been busy studying at UCLA. She graduated with a degree in computer science in 2016, as well as working behind the camera, producing films and shows. And she's already writing her next book. Bateman plans to tackle the idea of women's faces getting older in the public eye and why it makes the public so angry. With everything going on, Bateman's post-fame world isn't looking too shabby these days. I have so many great professional opportunities right now as a writer, director, and producer, and as an author. I'm so happy right now with everything that's happening, Bateman said. Moving on to Mr. Rogers. We are all familiar with that show. It's an older show, of course. There was a crew member working on the upcoming Mr. Rogers movie, which stars Tom Hanks, passed away after a fall on the set. James Emswiller, a sound technician, fell 2 stories from the balcony of an apartment building last Thursday in the Pittsburgh suburb of Mount Lebanon while taking a break between scenes, according to CBS News. Emswiller, who the county medical examiner said was 61 years old, may have been stricken with a heart attack prior to the fall, according to local reports. This is a devastating tragedy, and the studio is investigating the matter. Our thoughts and prayers are with the Jim's loved ones, friends, and colleagues. A representative for Sony Pictures and TriStar Pictures told the local news in a statement. Police and paramedics were called around 7:30 p.m. after other crew members reportedly heard Emswiller hit the ground. He was transported by medics to UPMC Mercy in critical condition and died shortly after. The crew was on the second day of filming an interior apartment scene with Tom Hanks, who was reportedly on the set at the time of the accident. Production was immediately halted, and it was unclear when it will resume. Filming for the project kicked off in Pittsburgh in mid-September. Emswiller had worked for decades as a sound mixer for a number of blockbuster Hollywood films. He picked up an Emmy for outstanding sound mixing for a limited series or movie in 2015 for the HBO biopic Bessie. His other credits include The Avengers, Jack Reacher, and The Fault in Our Stars, according to IMDb. The Mr. Rogers film, previously titled You Are My Friend, is inspired by the late children's television icon's friendship with journalist Tom Junod, who wrote a 1998 Esquire profile about him. The first image from the film, which is set to hit theaters October 18th, 2019, was released in September, showing Tom Hanks dressed in Mr. Rogers' signature cardigan. All right, moving on to I guess music news, couple of different female music icons. Well, let's do this first. Before we get into music news, Dax Shepard, Kristen Bell, them two are together, right? So nothing bonds. We're about to get real here. Nothing bonds a couple like a salacious rumor about their sex life. Kristen Bell and Dax Shepard delivered a hilarious 1-2 punch to shut down speculation about some extracurricular activities in the bedroom, reminding us why they're a perfect match for each other. The pair apparently received an email from Star magazine asking them to comment about the gossip on the couple's, quote, kinky sex life to save their marriage. The bullshit story, as Shepard described it, claims that the Veronica Mars actress believed that, quote, having a threesome and, quote, S&M and role-playing would ward off a marital meltdown, according to the email. Shepard shared the email on his Instagram page last Wednesday for his followers, along with his hilarious rebuttal. Quote, the only offensive thing about this bullshit story is that Kristen Bell isn't doing all this kinkiness out of horrorness, but rather a desperate attempt to save her marriage. He wrote in the caption alongside a screenshot of the Star's email, quote, I think we all know Bell is a lot more gangster than that. I'll now give you until 4 p.m. to comment, Star. Bell also weighed in, posting the same Star email screenshot on her social media. Quote, I'd love to comment, but it's hard to talk with this ball gag in, she wrote. The duo has been remarkably candid about their personal life in the past, and Bell cleared up earlier speculation after Shepard suggested that they are swingers. Quote, "Yeah, this sounds like my husband," Bell said during a 2016 appearance on Conan. "And I don't want to hurt your feelings, but you're not the first person he's tried to get us to swing with." The actress described her husband as both a, quote, "free spirit and a horn dog who naturally compliments other couples. He just loves people," the actress said. "He loves the human frame, and he constantly suggests at different dinner parties that we, quote, hang out and really get to know each other. We're not actually swinging with anyone," according to Kristen Bell. All right, moving on to music news.
You are listening to The Nick Harrison Podcast.
Cardi B. We know who she is, right? Female rapper. She won the 2018 American Music Award for Favorite Artist in the Rap Hip Hop category, but she was an even bigger winner for all the working moms out there. After thanking her fans, her team, and Jesus, Cardi gave a special shout out to her daughter, Culture Kiari Cephas. Cardi and her husband Offset gave birth to their first child together in July. "I really want to thank my daughter, and not just because she's my daughter," the rapper from the Bronx said. "When I was pregnant, I was just so influenced to be like, yo, I got to do this. I got to show people wrong. I got to prove people wrong. Because they said I wasn't going to make it after I had the baby." Cardi became the first female rapper to snatch 2 Billboard #1 singles while reportedly 7 months pregnant. She killed it during her AMA performance, which you can find on her Twitter and Instagram. The Bodak Yellow Star has been transparent with her fans about her postpartum struggles. A few weeks after giving birth, the 25-year-old announced she was dropping out of her tour with Bruno Mars to do what's best for her and her baby. "I underestimated this whole mommy thing," she said on Instagram. "She had planned on bringing her newborn on tour with her. Not only am I not just ready physically, I'm not ready to leave my baby behind since the doctors explained it's not healthy for her to be on the road," she said. In other music news, females, Lady Gaga is lending her powerful voice to another urgent cause. The A Star Is Born actress partnered with Dr. Tedros Adhanom, Director General of the World Health Organization, in a moving op-ed for The Guardian calling for an end to the stigmatization of mental health services. Stigma, fear, and lack of understanding compound to the suffering of those affected and prevent the bold action that is so desperately needed and so long overdue. The two wrote in a joint piece titled 800,000 People Kill Themselves Every Year. What Can We Do? Last Tuesday. The pair note that mental health issues will touch 1 in 4 people in their lifetimes, and say young people are especially at risk. Quote, "Despite the universality," I don't know how to say that word. Universality. "Despite the universality of the issue, we struggle to talk about it openly or to offer adequate care or resources," they added. "Within families and communities, we often remain silenced by a shame that tells us that those with mental illness are somehow less worthy or at fault for their own suffering. The two to refer to suicide as the, quote, most extreme and visible symptom of the larger mental health emergency we are so far failing to adequately address." Gaga and Adhanom encourage readers to break the pattern that continues to ostracize, blame, and condemn those who might be suffering, citing statistics that say suicide is the second leading cause of death globally amongst 15 to 29-year-olds. They also reveal connections between mental health and a robust economy, making special mention of the silver of global aid, less than 1%, that is directed to various services, while also noting that the domestic financing on prevention, promotion, and treatment is similarly low. "We can no longer afford to be silenced by stigma or stymied by misguided areas that portray these conditions as a matter of weakness or moral feeling," they continued in the op-ed. Research shows there is a fourfold return on investment for every dollar spent on treating depression and anxiety, the most common mental health conditions, making spending on the issue a great investment for both political leaders and employers, in addition to generating savings in the health sector. Gaga and Adonam offer a slew of examples of how people in their own communities have confronted the issue, and by the end of the piece, by calling for, quote, collective human action to tackle seemingly insurmountable problems. Lady Gaga has long been an outspoken advocate for mental health and suicide prevention, founding the Born This Way Foundation with her mother in 2012. To, quote, provide youth with genuine opportunities, quality resources, and platforms to make their voices heard. The singer has also spoken out about her own mental health struggles as a sexual assault survivor, revealing that she suffers from PTSD. The kindness that's been shown to me by doctors, as well as my family and my friends, it's really saved my life, Lady Gaga said on the Today Show in 2016. Quote, I've been searching for ways to heal myself, and I've found that kindness is the best way. To read the full op-ed, you can go look up on The Guardian. Moving to Selena Gomez, we all know who she is. She was hospitalized twice in the last 2 weeks, and the second time she suffered what sources called an emotional breakdown. She's now at a mental health facility for treatment. Multiple sources have reported that the 26-year-old singer was at her Studio City, California home in the last week of September when the first emergency hit. They're told that she was despondent and emotional all over an alarmingly low white blood cell count in the wake of her kidney transplant. Sources say a family member drove her to Cedars-Sinai Medical Center in Los Angeles. Selena was released days later but had to be readmitted late last week because her low blood cell count persisted, and it threw Selena Gomez into a downward emotional spiral. Soon after she was admitted, she insisted on leaving, but the doctor said that she couldn't. Selena Gomez had a meltdown and freaked out. Selena tried ripping the IVs out of her arm. Several sources called the episode, quote, an emotional breakdown. We are told that Selena is currently at an East Coast psychiatric facility and is receiving dialectal behavioral therapy, DBT, as it's known. The therapy treats various mental health disorders. Selena has received DBT in the past. There have been multiple signs of trouble. There has been a virtual blackout of information regarding Selena for several weeks. She posted on September 23rd she was taking a break from social media, noting, quote, just remember, negative comments can hurt anybody's feelings, obvi. Before leaving social media, Selena did an Instagram live answering questions from fans and said depression had consumed her life for 5 years. Selena's last public appearance was on September 22nd at Jennifer Lopez's Vegas show. There was also a picture floating around of Selena in Newport Beach, California, with a couple fans that was allegedly taken on September 22nd, but we're told that that picture was from March. She was a target of hateful comments on social media after her ex-boyfriend Justin Bieber got engaged to Hailey Baldwin. Selena did a stint in rehab back in 2014. Last year, she underwent a major surgery when she received the kidney transplant.
The Nick Harrison Podcast.
That's all the celebrity news I have for this episode. We've been on here roughly 25 minutes now, me just blabbering away. Before I go, I do want to remind you, you can find all of these stories that I've talked about and so much more on our website, www.realcelebritynews.com. You can also get our free life advice ebook on there. It's ways that you can live an action-driven life, just inspiring and kind of bring you up. It's an ebook on there you can get for free, again, on our website at realcelebritynews.com. You can also find us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Reddit, YouTube, all of that. All of those links are on our website, primarily Instagram and Twitter and Facebook at Real News Source. That's at Real News Source. If you want to have a voice and be heard, you can call the Hyena Hotline. It's a 24-hour, 7 days a week voicemail box set up to receive your calls and potentially feature your message on the next episode of the Nick Harrison Podcast. You can call the Hyena Hotline, that phone number, write this down and listen carefully as it has changed if you're a returning listener. That number is 980-354-1246. That's 980-354-1246. That's the Hyena Hotline.
The Nick Harrison Podcast.
That's all I have for now. Be sure to find me on social media, and thanks for listening. I will be back next week. Have a great week and have a great weekend.
You have reached the end of another episode of the Nick Harrison Podcast. For more news and current events, visit us online at www.realcelebritynews.com. Don't forget to leave a review on this episode and subscribe to the podcast feed.